We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday when you're listening to this. However, I'm recording it Monday night. No guests, no live, just me, some text, some news. We'll just talk some shit for an hour or so and see how that goes. As many of you know, I'm down in Savannah right now. My home is in Minnesota, but we have another small condo in Savannah. We love coming down here. Haven't been down here for a while because we had a new baby and that kind of caused things to be pretty busy. But now he's getting bigger and now we're back and enjoying the heck out of it. I bring that up because my wife and I did something kind of interesting today at my wife's behest. This was my wife's idea, not mine. And I'm glad she came up with the idea. At first, I thought, oh, fuck, this is going to be a long day. But my wife's pretty sensitive. So, with all that's going on with the violence, all the shit in Minnesota where our home is, um, like a lot of people, they're getting scared and frustrated and upset and tired of all the negativity. My wife said she needed something positive, something inspirational. And she had found out that there is this group of Tibetan monks that are walking across America, walk for peace. They're walking from Texas to Washington, D.C. And it just so happened that while we're here down in Savannah, they were going to be in South Carolina. She says she wants to go see the monks. Now, that wasn't high on my list. Not that I didn't want to see them, I just didn't want to drive 6 hours in one day. But it's my wife's idea. And if my wife says we're doing it, we're fucking doing it. That's just the way it goes. And that's fine. If she wants to see it, we'll go. So we drive out earlier this morning to a place called Ridgeway, South Carolina, out in the middle of nowhere, just this tiny little place. And it was a nice drive. South Carolina, Georgia, driving through that is beautiful. Um, but it was a matter of where we're going to catch up with these people. We knew that they were going to take a lunch break for a time and then continue walking. So we drove up to Ridgeway and we see this one area where there's a lot of people parked. I was interested by the fact that a lot of people came out to see these Tibetan monks um, walking for peace in a very red state, South Carolina. But there was a big crowd there. And they were crowded around, and these monks were sitting down, finishing lunch, and having talks with people. I go, wow, we nailed this perfectly. So we get out of the car, we go up, and we watch what's going on. We even got a picture or two taken with the monks. Um, and it was kind of inspirational, honestly. You think about the commitment they're making. Up to today, they'd walked 1,500 miles. They're averaging 25 to 35 miles a day. A few of those people, a few of those monks have walked all those miles barefoot. Can you imagine? I can't walk to the refrigerator barefoot for fuck's sake. But they walked across the country and they're continuing on to Washington, D.C. I don't know how long before they get there, but that's where they're headed. And it was interesting meeting these people, very peaceful people. There was apparently there's this African American guy that's been following them, walking along with them. And every time they stop and talk, he's trying to convince them, don't do it your way. You got to find Jesus. Today was about the 10th time he's done that. And they finally said, look, we're not going to talk. We're not going to go over this again and again. I have respect for you. You should have respect for me. Do what you do. We'll do what we do. And apparently the gentleman agreed to that. And maybe those talks are over. Um, but I was thinking about this. These Tibetan monks are walking across the country, not trying to impose anything on anybody. They're just trying to make a gesture to hope for peace in a time that's very violent in this country. And when I met these guys, I saw I saw in their eyes that they were true of heart and they were sincere about this. And they've obviously made the commitment, walking already 1,500 miles. Now you have to understand this walk to this point hasn't been without incident. There has been an incident where a car hit one of the lead cars. You understand that they have cars around them when they're doing this, and there is an RV or two where they sleep at night, that sort of thing. But they're just strictly walking the whole way. Well, a car that was on the roadway, and I'm not sure where this was, hit the pilot car. That car veered off and hit two of the monks. Now, both the monks were in the hospital for a time. One of those monks lost a leg in that incident, but they decided to continue on with the walk. And at different parts, this monk who lost the leg is there in a wheelchair. It's unbelievable the commitment at a time when nobody commits to fucking anything. Um, so what I'm saying is, my wife and I drove 3 hours to see them. We spent about a half hour in this whole process. When they started walking, my wife took a video of them walking by, and I was getting ready to do a TikTok while they're walking by, and I'm getting everything ready. These people were walking at a pretty fast pace. I don't know that I would have kept up with them. They were moving pretty hard, and they're going 25, 35 miles a day. My point is when I walked over and we took the picture and I looked in this guy's eyes and he didn't look tired, he didn't look distraught, he didn't look disappointed or um, it was very inspirational. It goes to show you that there can be some peace in this country if you just let it. And I have a lot of respect for these guys making this effort. Will it change anything? I don't know. Maybe it will inspire enough people where we will get more peace in this country. But I respect what they're doing. And I'm glad my wife encouraged us to do this because it was well worth the 6 hours on the road to spend that half hour in that situation. Anyway, as you might guess, we'll be talking about text today. It's just going to be me. There is no guests. We aren't doing a live. We're going to do the texts. And the thing about it is I put out those texts and I thought, yes, people will write in. A lot of you motherfuckers are writing in, and that's great. I'm glad you are. I want to hear from you people. As I've said many times in the lives, what I have to say is one thing, but what you have to say is far more important. It's the participation. I can do anything I want on TikTok or on YouTube or whatever, but unless people are listening and reacting, it really doesn't mean much. So you people are absolutely important. So let's go through some of the text. First one says, Hey, Boomer, I was listening to some other podcaster who are theorizing that MTG quit Congress because she was blackmailed by Donald Trump. We all know that she was doing some insider trading and he could have proven it. That's really the only explanation I can come up with the odd timing for her resignation. I don't know that I agree with you on that because they're all doing insider trading. And the idea that Donald Trump would force her to resign before the end of her term isn't beneficial to the Republicans. It hurts the Republicans. It would be a dumb move. Now, that said, Donald Trump is a dumb motherfucker. So conceivably, it's true. I personally think Marjorie Taylor Greene is getting scared about what's going on there. She sees the demise of the Republican Party in Congress. She sees that there's going to be a massive change in the majority in the House. And she just wants to get out of there before she gets too much stink on her. I think it's a little late, to be perfectly honest, but I think that's part of it. And to be honest with you, the reason she decided to leave early because I think she wanted to punish the Republican Party. Say, yeah, I'm leaving, but I'm going to leave early so your slim margin is even slimmer. That's just my guess. That's just my guess. Um, Somebody else sent this. Do you know this man? And it was a picture of Jonathan Ross. Let's get this motherfucker gone as soon as possible. Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit. John Ross, what a cowardly piece of shit. This guy he's not a new guy to the ice. He's been around for a while. He's been an instructor. So he should know better than anybody that what he did was illegal. But I think that's the point. We're hearing now more and more that these ICE agents are trained to jump in front of a car so that it gives them an excuse to shoot, to kill. Um, then I saw another video yesterday. And in this video, an ICE agent was talking to another woman in a car, not unlike Miss Good. And he was saying, you can't follow us, you can't obstruct us, this could get you in trouble, it's going to get worse for you today. And she's going, I'm not following you. I don't care. She's being kind of smart alecky like Miss Good was, which isn't illegal, by the way. And this gentleman says something that I thought was very chilling and tells me a lot about the mentality of those people in ICE. He looks at her and says, you would think with what has happened over the last couple of days, you would have learned a lesson. Learned a lesson. You mean to tell me by shooting and killing and murdering people in the streets of Minneapolis and any other city, you're just trying to teach us a lesson, instill fear in all of us? And the thing about it is that's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. So we've got to take note of that. We've got to push back, and fear can't play into this. They're getting more exposure now. People are have them under a microscope, so it's going to be much harder for them to do certain things. Our buddy Jonathan Ross, of course, this big time ICE agent, this instructor, whoever the fuck he is, he acts perfectly justified in what he did. But then the ICE agents, the undercover ICE agents, take him back to his home in Chaska, which is about 10 miles south of where I live, and they go into his house. They gather up all his things and his family. They put him in a car and they spirit him away to um, to some safe house or something because he's a fucking coward. You don't run like that if you're justified, I wouldn't think. And since the FBI is not going to do anything to them, I think you can be guaranteed they aren't going to do anything. They're going to cover it up just like they covered up the Epstein files. But I think he's a little fearful of the crowds because they're angry. They see this fucker on the streets, at the store, at Target. He's got a problem. Now, what I found interesting, Attorney General um, Ellison in Minnesota pointed out that whether Donald Trump wants to cover this up or stop any investigations or any prosecutions, this person, Jonathan Ross, needs to understand that there is no statute of limitation on murder. And when Donald Trump is no more, expect the state of Minnesota and Keith Ellison to come out looking for him and possibly and probably indict him and prosecute him. So Mr. Ross better get the fuck out of the country. Interestingly enough, he's married to an immigrant, a woman from the Philippines. Maybe they should go back to the Philippines to live. But again, it goes back to what I've said before. If you're so confident that you are just in what you did, why the fuck are you running and hiding? Jesus Christ. Um, all right, here's another one. Hey, Mike, John Deere John from the Ozarks. History Mom is great, and so is Will. Can't leave out Will. We have had an actual legit documented Civil War canon in our family since 1992. We recently had the original carriage restored. I'll send you a pic. Take care. Thanks for what you do. What are you trying to suggest? It's cool that you got a cannon. Are you talking about using this motherfucker? We might need it. He goes on to say it took a white woman to get killed for white America to get nervous. Kind of a dose of reality. Like it can't happen to us, but it just did. In a way, we need to feel what it's like to be scared, appreciate the fear of others and what they live with. Maybe that is how we change the system. Yeah, and I know I've talked about this before, and it's sad to say, but there have been other people killed by ICE since they've been coming out. There have been immigrants, people of color, and you didn't see the uproar as much as you do for this white lady. I listened to some African American people talk about this, and they said, well, maybe now that white people understand the danger that people of color have been in for decades, getting shot for being pulled over for speeding or something like this. This isn't new to the African American community, and we have to understand that. It's sad that we have to wake up white America by having a white person killed, but if it did, hopefully it'll get us closer to getting this whole fucking thing resolved. I hope. Um, Moving on. All right. Hi, Mike. I'm sorry what your state is going through with the ICE situation. I'm sorry that young woman was shot and killed. I was listening to your podcast and you were talking about the shuffling of leadership in Minnesota. And I like both Tim Walz and Amy Klobuchar, but I see a young fighter that needs to be highlighted. The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, he is a firebrand and he knows how to return the conversation on what matters when the media or Republicans try to change the narrative. I hope he runs for higher office. We need these young fighters in the Democratic Party. Thanks, V. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, V. Jacob Fry has been mayor for a while of Minneapolis. Now I don't live in Minneapolis anymore, so I don't know a lot about him. There was a lot of heat put on Jacob Fry during the George Floyd murder and the riots. He and Tim Walz were accused of waiting too long to do anything. There have been people talking badly about Jacob Fry. Now, I don't really have an opinion because I don't live in Minneapolis, but there are people in this state that aren't big fans of Jacob Fry. That said, maybe this instance, maybe this event is what's going to bring him out of the shell and speak out. He is young, he's willing to speak out, but I'm going to wait and see if he's willing to do something too. It's really easy to come out and say, get the fuck out of our town. Um, it's another thing to say, how are you going to do it? What are you going to do? You can't just stand there and be mad. You're the mayor. You got to do something. Same with Tim Walz. You got to do something. Now, they talked about bringing in the National Guard and what that means. I'm not exactly sure. But if that's what you're going to fucking do, do it. I'm not talking badly at Tim Walz or Jacob Fry, but we are in desperate times, so it's time for desperate measures. And I just want to see if Tim Walz and Jacob Fry are up to it. All right. All right. Somebody texted you asking January 6th, asking who's really behind the Venezuela takeover. This may answer your question. They give me something to Substack that I'm not going to read here. I think who's behind the Venezuela thing is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is looking for a distraction. He's looking for grifting some money. He sees oil in Venezuela and he thinks if he can own it, that he'll make money. It sounds simple-minded, but you have to remember Donald Trump is a simple-minded motherfucker. So this isn't surprising. Interesting statement by Donald Trump on Truth Social. This is almost funny. Donald Trump says, I am now the acting president of Venezuela. Sorry to tell you, Donnie, you are not. Because you went in and got the president, but you left the vice president, the entire Maduro regime. If you really wanted to take over control of that country, you should have grabbed up the entire regime. Now, it's interesting. The opposition in Venezuela is fronted by a woman by the name of Machado. And you may have heard that name because she won the Nobel Peace Prize when Donald Trump wanted to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, I think she's probably a little shady too, but she's more democratic. She beat Maduro, and Maduro pulled to Trump and said, yeah, I'm not leaving. So that's why we are where we are. Maduro's not the legitimate leader of Venezuela, according to the elections. Now, Machado was hoping that Donald Trump would pull Maduro's regime out and put her in place, the rightful winner. But he hasn't done that because his goal isn't regime change. His goal is control. And whoever is going to give him that control is who he's going to stick with. Now, once they took the president out of there, the vice president is there, and he's basically telling her, you better do what I tell you, or it's going to get worse for you. Now, I'm not sure if she's going to fall in line with Donald Trump, but Machado's so anxious to be president of that country that she said, hell, I'll share the Nobel Peace Prize. I'll give Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. And Donald Trump said he might take it. Talk about pathetic. Can you imagine a woman who legitimately wins the Nobel Peace Prize and just hand it off to Donald Trump, and he thinks that he's a big winner because he got this consolation or participation prize? He'd take that motherfucker too, except there's a hitch in this whole thing now. Once the Nobel Peace Prize Committee heard about this, They explained that it can't be transferred. It can't be given to somebody else. It's irrevocable. It's not recognized. You can't do it. So I don't know what Machado's going to do. And Donald Trump will still want to have the Nobel Peace Prize because he likes trophies, even if he's not participated at all, a la the World Cup. Remember that? All right. Hello, Mike. Looks like Trump has replaced Congress with oil company executives and given them power to declare war. I have heard no outcry from any Republicans. Then Crash Patel's FBI will investigate the murder of Renee Good. He has yet to solve the Trump fake assassination, Charlie Kirk's murder, or the Brown University shooting. Sam in southeastern Georgia. Interesting. I happen to be in southeastern Georgia at this moment. I don't know if he's replaced Congress with oil oil magnates, because to be perfectly honest with you, from what I've heard, oil companies don't want to go down to Venezuela. They need some assurances that Donald Trump can't give. They've lost a lot of money down there trying to do things, and then the money's been stolen from them, and they came out on the short end of the stick. Now, if you know anything about Donald Trump and business deals, you know you're going to come out on the short end of the stick again. So I doubt they're going to want to do that. You're right, FBI is going to investigate the death of Renee Good at the hands of ICE agent Jonathan Ross murder. They are going to probably do nothing at all. It would harm their messaging, and it would take away from whatever power they believe they have. But as I said before, the state of Minnesota isn't going to let it go. One way or another, they're going to get this motherfucker. And on top of it, Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, is also suing the Trump administration for bringing ICE in there at all. Now, what will that do? We've seen some other lawsuits. The fact of the matter, there's been tons of lawsuits brought against the Trump administration. And guess what? They fucking lost all of them. They fucking lost all of them. Um, I'm glad that he's bringing the lawsuit. I think we need to stop it now. Um, I don't know how we do it, where we do it, but the Republicans are starting to get a little nervous. Um, we've always said, when are the Republicans going to have enough? When are they going to push back against Donald Trump? Was it when they deported children and citizens and put them in detention camps? No, it wasn't then. The Republicans were cool with that. Is it when they bombed Venezuela, killing hundreds of people in boats and in Venezuela's country? Nope, it wasn't then. When they found out that they were grifting money and stealing money from the middle class, did they find the red line there? No, not then. But there has been a red line. It appears to be a red line that Donald Trump has crossed that is starting to make the Republicans nervous. You know what I'm talking about? Donald Trump is doing an investigation and has hopes to prosecute Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, for money that was spent on renovating the Fed buildings. It was came out at $1.8 billion to do it, and they ultimately spent $2.5 billion. Now, much like Donald Trump shit he's done in the past, this is all work that was done 5 years ago. And secondly, the audacity of questioning Jerome Powell. Now, I don't know if Jerome Powell did something untoward or not. I doubt that he did. He seems um, pretty straight edge, in terms of politics. Um, but the audacity of saying he had some renovations going on for 1.8 billion and it went to 2.5 billion. So we need to have a criminal prosecution of Jerome Powell. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? How about this ballroom, this fucking ballroom that he's building? He came out and said it was going to be $200 million. Now what's he saying? 400 million, 500 million? Sounds like the same thing he's accusing um, Jerome Powell of. But the problem isn't really um, The problem really isn't whether this crime is committed. Where the Republicans are freaking out, where the red line has been drawn, is that if they were to destabilize the Fed and they were to prosecute Jerome Powell, that would throw the economy in this country in an absolute fucking tizzy. This is all about Donald Trump wanting to lower the interest rates. Jerome Powell has been pretty cautious with Donald Trump at this point, but yesterday he said, this is completely a revenge type thing because I didn't drop interest rates fast enough. This is a serious risk to the Fed because the Fed is supposed to be an independent organization. If the president takes control of the Fed, it's going to cause a lot of problems. It's going to make unstable the bond market. And if the bond market goes, we are totally fucked. We are in debt for trillions and trillions of dollars, and we'll never come back for that. If they do lower the interest rates, he thinks the economy is going to be better. But what Donald Trump doesn't understand is if he lowers the interest rates, it'll be good for loans and that sort of thing, but it'll cause inflation to go through the fucking roof. And is it surprising that Donald Trump would have an idea to do something that's totally fucking stupid? Well, that's what it is. And now the Republicans are freaking out. Even Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, is saying, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. But what's really stopping Donald Trump? Nothing. Doesn't have to run for re-election. He doesn't have to do anything specific. He can do whatever he wants. We're seeing him do it now. They're killing people in the streets of America. So to prosecute the Fed chair unjustly, that's not a big deal to him. He'll do that in a minute. But the Republicans are going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Republicans in Congress, Scott Bessent, everybody's going, you can't do this. You're going to fuck things up, not only for the middle class, but for the oligarchs. That's the opposite of what they want to do. So we may be seeing a red line. Will they do anything about it? I don't know. I mean, at this point, the only thing you can really do is impeach that motherfucker, kick him out, and prosecute him. That's what they should do. That's what they should have done from day one of this second term. The first term, they should have done it. But will the Republicans have the courage to do it? I'm not sure. We haven't seen any sign of courage out of them as yet. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and we'll see what happens. But I'm not counting on anything when it comes to the cowardly Republican Party in Congress. All right, this one comes from Liza from New Jersey. I want to know if anyone is noticing a barrage of religious content on their FYPs on TikTok. It seems like every other video on my page is pushing out religious BS. It seems like the more I block it, the more I get. Apparently, they're working hard to turn us all into good Christians, and that is annoying as fuck. Thanks, and fuck Donald Trump. Well, thank you, Liza. Yeah, I've been seeing some interesting things on TikTok. I don't know where TikTok is at this point. I'm on it because I have a lot of followers. I feel an obligation to them. I put it there. I put it on YouTube. I put it on Substack. If you're not seeing me on TikTok, go check YouTube. It's easy to find it. It's Substack too. Spotify as well. I'm on Spotify too. But um, I don't know what to say about TikTok. I'll ride that. I'll ride that as long as I can. And if it goes away, it goes away. If it sticks around, I'll keep doing it. It's almost like TikTok isn't my base anymore. TikTok was also always the base of when I was doing things. And I think at this point, it's more YouTube. You'll see all the same things on TikTok and YouTube. But YouTube, you also have this podcast as well. So you have that extra going to YouTube and Spotify for that matter. Um, all right, let's see here. All right. Thank you, Mike, for standing up. I see the economy report. However, part of me says that it is what they want. If the economy takes a dive like in '08, that is heaven for brown shirts implementing martial law and worse. Please read what happened in Germany in 1932 to 1933. The Nazis overthrow a democratic system in 1 year, just like it is happening here. They are slowly squeezing the patriots out and replacing with racist followers. By elections, machine guns on the street, and Lindsey Graham would say it's a good thing we do not have a year. Well, yeah, I don't disagree with you that that is at risk. I think the idea of martial law is a threat they want to use. I don't think they can implement it because there's just too many people. I mean, it's not like you're putting martial law in Washington, D.C., and that's it. You've got a wide country and you've got a lot of people in the streets right now just because of this one incident. Um, Even if they try martial law, I don't think it's going to work. Remember, South Korea tried it, they fucked that up. So, anything is possible. I'm not too worried about martial law at this point. Um, but we've got to consider it. We've got to consider that's an opportunity that Donald Trump might avail himself to. But again, as I've always said, Donald Trump always fucks up. He can't pull anything off. Tell me what, if anything, has he done that he's been successful at? Oh, he's made a mess of this country. There's no question of it. He's done it mostly with executive orders. So when there's a new president, um, they can shut all those things down in a minute. He hasn't made permanent laws by any stretch of the imagination. He's done permanent damage, and it's going to take a while to repair it. Um, it really comes down to the one group of people that can do something and chose not to do it, and that is the Republican Party in Congress. They could have impeached him. They could have got him on the 25th Amendment with help from the administration, but they've chose to stand there with their thumbs in their ass and do nothing. So they are the people to blame at this point. No president should be allowed to do the things he's doing. They shouldn't allow him to run rogue, but that's exactly what the Republicans have done. So when Donald Trump is dead after choking on a Big Mac, a fish fillet, and a quarter pounder of cheese and fries and a Diet Coke, and then shitting himself to death, you're going to look for people who should be accountable. We know who they are: his administration, his department heads, and all of the Republicans in Congress. I'm talking all of them. I know Massey's fighting against Donald Trump too, but Donald Trump is where he is because Massey towed the line for a while. And until Massey and Ro Khanna get these files out, I'm not going to applaud them as yet. It's one thing to say we want them out. We've got a law to get them out, but we still need to get them out. It's breaking the law by 3 weeks right now or more. Um, it's one thing to say it. It's one thing to say, get the fuck out of my town. It's not until you do something about it when I'll give you positive feedback. Hi, Boomer. I caught Jesse Ventura's ad hoc comments on Trump's America. He is 100% correct. Trumpism is tracking 1930s Nazism. However, two things Hitler did not have to contend with: the embedded Americans, I know my rights, and rugged individualism mentality, the proliferation of firearms, and in many states, the legal right to carry and use. The German Reich restricted gun ownership early in its term. American democracy will not go quietly into the night, and it's going to be a shit show. Trump can no longer be seen as just a bully. He has to be seen as a tool simultaneously used by Putin and moneyed interests to remold America. A dull or broken tool is a dangerous and destructive thing. Thanks, Paul. I think that's very poignant. I think I agree with you 100%. People want to um, people want to compare this to Nazi Germany, and to a certain extent you can, but Paul's exactly right. There's some things that we have going for us that Nazi Germany did not. Um, as far as the media, as far as guns in this country. That's the one thing about Republicans. They think Democrats are these meek and mild people that won't fight back. I think we're seeing on the streets of Minneapolis right now that that is not true. And people throughout the country, you get everybody in the country in an uproar, and we pretty much are there because we've got huge protests in Minneapolis, but there's probably 1,000 other protests around the country because of this very situation. And I don't personally think Donald Trump understands that. Somebody brought it up to him in an interview or a press conference, and he says, "Well, I don't believe that." Well, Donnie, turn on the motherfucking TV, you stupid orange son of a bitch. All right, next up. Oh, this is interesting. This is from Jerry in Savannah, Georgia, in the very town I'm in currently. I love how everyone in the regime says that the woman was a domestic terrorist. Apparently, they didn't watch the same video the rest of us did. I hate to say it, but I think us as people need to do the same thing to them. But as I think of that, we know why they don't enter the hoods of the city. They're cowards, always have been. Sorry about not saying this first. Happy New Year, and I hope 2026 blesses you. I'm Jerry from Savannah. Well, Jerry, I don't know where you live in Savannah, but I'm currently in Savannah. I love Savannah. Um, I said this, I think, to Will the other day, and I would have never said this before because I really believe the Republicans would put up some guardrails and stop Donald Trump at some point. Clearly, they haven't done that. It's going to be interesting to see how far they push it because there will come a time to fight. There'll be fighting in the streets. And you may think that that's what they want so they can institute martial law, but it's going to be too much for them to handle if people hit the streets and they're mad. It's going to cause some immense problems with the economy. It's going to cause problems with the Trump administration for Republicans. Um, I think the kids would say they don't want none of that smoke because it's not going to be like they imagine. Nothing they've done up to this point has turned out like they imagined, and they will be wrong again. You have to wonder what point do we get to where people say, fuck it, I don't even care anymore. I've got nothing to lose. Who's to say somebody gets mad enough and starts trying to take out ICE agents? Not in a riot situation, but from a distance. What would that look like? I hope to God that doesn't happen, but people are scared. They will do anything to try to save themselves and their families. And Donald Trump is known for pushing things to the limit and then beyond, and then he fucks up. Well, if he fucks up with this one any more than he already has, there's going to be a lot of people that are dead because there will be fighting in the streets. And the Republicans and the ICE agents will quickly find out that the Democrats and reasonable-minded folks aren't aren't meek and are willing to fight. All right, next one says this one comes from Laura. Hi, Mike. I'm glad you got out of the ice in Minnesota. I have watched the Renee Good video multiple times. What really disturbs me was that the fellow officers literally walked away. They failed to render aid. I do understand why the doctor was not let in to help. They just created a crime scene. Paramedic here. I can guarantee that every one of those other officers had at least basic first aid class. Yeah, um, they broke a lot of laws. I mean, the guy using his phone, stepping in front of a car, lying about getting hit by the car. He never got hit by the car. Um, it's there is nothing about that situation that is legal. They can try to tell us that it's legal, but it's not. Anybody with a reasonable mind will say what they saw was not legal. Still, I go onto Facebook and other places, and we got these dumbass Trumplafucks that will continue to say, she's a domestic terrorist. Really, motherfucker? You know who a domestic terrorist is? Ashley Babbitt. And she got what she deserved. And if people don't like to hear that, fuck you, especially Republicans. Based on what you tell us about domestic terrorists and what should be done with them, she was treated properly. Fact of the matter is, all the rest of her cohorts on that day, on January 6, 2021, should have been shot as well, according to the Republicans. Now, they would never say that because they looked at them as peaceful protesters. So the guy crashing into the window, beating up a cop, spraying bear spray, those were peaceful protesters. A woman sitting in her car trying to go get her kid, and she said, I'm not mad at you, dude. That's a domestic terrorist. Please fucking explain that to me. All right, next one comes up from Boston Dave. Dave, you're a right motherfucker, aren't you? Hey, Mike, have an analogy to this new might makes right position the U.S. seems to be aligning with Russia on that I thought was worth sharing. If that's new, in reality, the old way of the world, and hypothetically we adopt that here at home, what's to stop a neighbor who is physically larger in status, has a larger family, or has other means from saying that they like the property owned by a more vulnerable neighbor and either taking it or manipulating them to give it to them? In that scenario, I think that any decent neighbors or person familiar with the situation would intervene to try to stop that from happening. The analogy could be expanded to show how, if one bad neighbor got away with this, it would encourage other less principled neighbors to attempt it, to do the same kind of type of grab. I just can't see how anyone in their right mind cannot see that on a macro level, we're essentially being the bad neighbor in this case with Greenland, and NATO is being the good neighbors trying to stop it. I think we could inject multiple countries into the bad neighbors category that would encourage by our attempt to take Greenland. In my analogy, it would align with current geopolitical situations. Let me know what you think, Boston Dave. Well, Boston Dave, I agree with you completely. I think you're absolutely right with regards to this. Um, I don't know if Donald Trump's going to do too well. He said we could either do it the easy way or the hard way. One way is to pay them off. The other way is to go in there militarily. But again, this is where the Republicans are going to push back on Donald Trump. This is where Europe is going to push back on Donald Trump. Denmark is. NATO is. Now, Donald Trump has no problem with destroying NATO by doing this. And as I've said before, there's only one man that really doesn't like NATO other than Donald Trump, and that is Vladimir Putin. We have to understand NATO was basically formed to protect everyone from Vladimir Putin. So naturally, he doesn't like NATO. Now, all of a sudden, Donald Trump doesn't like NATO. Wonder where he got that idea or those marching orders from. Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump always says, Russia, Russia, Russia was a hoax. It was not a hoax. His campaign manager went to jail for interacting and spying with Russians. Donald Trump goes into meetings with Vladimir Putin with regularity when they're together, and nobody's in the room. It has to be secret. The idea that Donald Trump isn't complicit with isn't complicit with Vladimir Putin is absolutely ridiculous. It's so obvious, any idiot could realize it, well, except Donald Trump and the dumb motherfuckers that follow him. All right, who's this one from? This one comes from John. You are some prolific motherfuckers. You write the longest text I've ever seen. And that's cool. Whatever you want to say, you're more than willing, more than able to say it. And as I've said before, if you ever want to just come on the show and talk for a bit, you can do that. We have people do it all the time. Everybody you hear on the show is just listeners of the show. They aren't experts any more than I'm an expert, but they have insights, they have perspectives, and I think it's important to hear them. All right. Mike, your shows are very important in these times. Ed is always on point. Howard makes great points and is a very likable guy. Of course, you have many great people on your show. I do have a question. I'm noticing that there are some popular podcasters who after acknowledging Trump's destruction of our democracy, our neutered Congress, a corrupt Supreme Court, and other institutions, will somehow, during the show, slip in a comment about how Democrats will get back to power after the 2026 midterms. It's almost like a record skipped or something. Everything they said during the whole podcast does not lead up to in any way with the fact that we have 10 more months of this shit till the midterms. Are they obligated as per some contract, like the chorus thing with BT Cohen and Pac-Man, to have to sell some fake disconnected hope in order to tame the public from revolting now? Is there money involved? Does a token mention of midterms drive more views or subscribers? It's like after all the astute observations about how Dump is aggressively cementing his dictatorship, they throw in some seemingly obligatory comment about midterms that are almost a year away. If the only way to rein in Donald Trump are the midterms 10 months from now, then why worry or report on anything until then? It will all be fine then. Just suck it up for now, suffer, even risk being killed, but just hold on until those glorious midterms. Kind of a rhetorical question. Sorry for how long it was. As always, thank you for all you do, John. Um, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Is there money involved? Are they trying to get viewers? Here's the thing, when you look at a David Pacman or Midas Touch or something like that, they do good work. They do a good job. But they're a little different situation than me or some of the other smaller podcasters. If I had a sponsor and they said to me, Mike, you got to say it this way or you got to do it that way in order for us to continue being a sponsor, they wouldn't be a sponsor. I'm not doing this for sponsors. In terms of viewership, I learned a long time ago. I'm an old guy sitting in a living room talking some shit. I don't have a lot that's going to be attracted by the vast amount of people on TikTok or YouTube. So I didn't try. I just said, fuck it, I'm going to be who I am and we'll see what happens. And it's turned out pretty well, thankfully. Um, but anytime you have a big organization like Pac-Man or Brian Tyler Cohen or Midas Touch, well, they do good work. They do have some outside influence. They have to make money. They have to hit their bottom line. They have to appeal to sponsors, and they got to keep trying to generate more viewers. It's a business. Now, I don't fault them for that. They're entitled to have a business as long as they don't do anything to hurt this country. Um, the reason they say that it's about the midterms is because that's what the Democrats have said. Every time you talk to the Democrats, say, what are you doing? What can you do? They all say that. Well, when the midterms come and we get control, then we can finally do something, which I think is ridiculous. If our government can't do anything about a rogue president, there's something wrong with the entire system. Now, that said, the Republicans should be noticing this and doing their job and being patriots and pushing back, but they refuse to do it. So, because of the way the voting went in 2024, giving the power in the House and the Senate and the presidency to the Republicans, it really kind of put us in this position. I would hope there are other things they could do, but the Democrats aren't doing it. Well, they're doing some things. And logically, when the midterms come around, it should be a blue wave for the Democrats. Now, people will say, well, we thought it was going to be a blue wave in 2024. And you're absolutely right about that. But what you got to understand too is in 2020, Donald Trump lost, and so did the Republican, because people were just coming out of COVID and coming out of the shit show that Donald Trump put on us. After 4 years, apparently there's a lot of dumb motherfuckers that forget what's going on and they voted for this dipshit again. In 2026, we'll be ensconced in the middle of a horrible economy, attacks on Venezuela, threats to Greenland, people being shot in the streets. That's going to give a different tone when we get to the midterms. When they answer like that, what they're basically saying is, well, we don't know, but our hopes are this. And people will say, Mike, you spread too much hope. What's the other fucking option? What's the other option of having hope? The only other option is giving up and curling up in a corner and fucking dying. Sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm looking at the situation best I can and try to make some observation about how I think it will turn out. To think that the 2026 midterms will be anything less than a blue wave is hard to imagine given all that's gone on and how many people are suffering. So we'll see what happens. The bottom line is all these big time podcasters and we little podcasters, we don't fucking know. All we can do is look at the facts, throw that out, and try to perceive what might happen based on the facts. Now, I have one problem. I based Kamala Harris winning on facts, truth, and common sense. And after she lost, it fucked me up pretty good because I realized truth and common sense doesn't necessarily come into play in this scenario. So, given that, I don't know what to fucking think. I wish I could tell you the exact answer. The only thing I know for certain is we got to keep talking, we got to keep fighting, we got to keep pushing back. And we've got to try to keep ourselves alive up until the time when Donald Trump is no more. I think if Donald Trump finally keeled over or was impeached or somehow left office, things would start to get better. Even with J.D. Vance in there, it would get better because J.D. Vance is a weak bitch. He isn't going to be able to do much at that point. Once the cult leader is gone, the power is gone. So um, I can't speak to the big podcasters, what they want, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. I can tell you this. We're just going to talk about the shit as we know it here. I'm not going to worry about views. I'm not trying to sell advertisement. Doesn't really fucking matter. YouTube pays me a little bit for putting the podcast on, so does Spotify. Not a lot of money, but that's not why I'm doing it. All right, the next one says, "Hey Boomer, this is Chris from Southwest Ohio, Blue Dot Red State. Love your show. How long will it take for this shooter to go on tour with Rittenhouse?" Yeah, you're right about that. That fucking clown. That kid thought he was going to be a hero and the Republicans would love him for life, and that's not quite how it went, is it? Hey Boomer, Chris again in Ohio. Just wanted to say Trump's hair and makeup artist, a wonderful sense of humor. I wonder if we could get Tommy Chong to ask him who cuts his hair. You got to be you got to be old enough to understand that. Uh, when I was a little kid, 15, 13, 14, 15, my brother and I had all the Cheech and Chong's records, and there's a skit in there that says, "Who cut your hair, man?" Or "Dave's not here." If you haven't listened to Cheech and Chong, you got to check it out. It's hilarious. All right, the next one says, "I can't believe the amount of text from all the maggots saying Miss Good deserves to die. Wish we could have a civil war. I'd like to meet some of these pieces of shit." I got to be honest with you. I'm a 65-year-old man. I'm pretty nonviolent. But in my youth, I had my share of fights and tussles and that sort of thing. Some of these people I see on Facebook, some people I fucking know, I would love to slap the fucking taste out of their mouth. Absolutely love it. Um, it gets frustrating. You get angry. And this is what I'm saying. There are people that are younger, um, better in a position to fight that are getting mad. It's hurting them more than it's hurting me. As a retired guy, it only affects me so much, but I'm worried about my kids and my grandkids. There's a lot of young people out there that are getting fucking nervous and getting angry. And there'll come a point um, where people are going to fight back. Jackie from Brocass, Alabama sent me this meme. It says, "Y'all seen the 17-year-old Target employee who was abducted by ICE from his job despite being a United States citizen and telling them that they say shoved him in their car, and when they confirmed he was indeed a U.S. citizen, dumped him in a Walmart parking lot 8 miles away from where they abducted him, and he's stumbling and sobbing." Um, while bystanders ask if he's okay at the Walmart or being pushed out of the car. And he's sobbing. He says, I'm not okay. They slammed me on the ground and he's bleeding. Yeah, that's who Donald Trump is. That's who they are. And that's how they're treating people. And I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Any Trumplefuck wants to debate me on this, I'm ready anytime. Anybody can be on this podcast. I'd love to have you on, not because it would be any value in the long run, but I'd like to get this off my chest and kick the shit out of a Trumplefuck at some point soon. They won't come on though. I've asked a few and they refuse to do it. Um, Okay, this person sends me something, a copy of a bill in a meme situation. Representative Randy Fine, a Republican from Florida, introduces a bill authorizing Trump to invade, occupy, and annex Greenland to the United States. Randy Fine is a dumbass rep from Florida. He won a recent election. He shouldn't have won. He's a fucking absolute goof. He's stupid. He's slow. And he thinks he can make, he's a representative and he thinks he can make a bill saying, yeah, it's okay to go get Greenland. Motherfucker, do you know how this all works? With Congress, with Denmark, with Europe? You think just because you give it, you're okay, Donald Trump's free to do this? What a fucking absolute dumb motherfucker. All right. Laura sent this to me. It looks like a tweet or an X or whatever the fuck. The fact that when relaxed, he liked it inserted, but then the SA victim, Sasha Riley, gave it a punishing kick after being almost murdered and beat up by the man. Don's wearing diapers since his 50s. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. And the story about Sasha Riley, I don't know a lot about it, and I don't know how much I want to talk about it because I need some verification on it. But there is some audio going around about a gentleman named Sasha Riley. He's a veteran, but he's claiming during his youth of being sexually abused by Donald Trump and other well known folks. The story he's telling is absolutely terrifying. He suggested that Donald Trump's kink was watching people suffer. He even at one point wanted to actually kill somebody. The fact that Donald Trump may be the sick piece of shit is not surprising. I don't know what the real story is with this audio from Sasha Riley. If it's true, I hope it gets the coverage it should get and it causes Donald Trump problems. If there's any way they can prove this or verify it, it would be absolutely devastating to Donald Trump. But I haven't seen the verification. I've heard the audio, but there's a lot of things you can hear in audio, even some video with AI, that doesn't necessarily make a difference. All right. I've got the last text here, and it looks like they're talking about Sasha Riley too. Hey, Mike, I don't know if you have heard this, but there is a guy named Sasha Riley who claims his adopted father sold him out to Epstein and his friends for fights and SA. There are audio files of his interview on Substack. Look up, don't worry, boys are hard to find. He remembers Jim Jordan, Andy Biggs, Lindsey Graham, all assaulting him. Then he says, sorry, my phone died, had to find my charger. Anyway, he also said he had encounters with Trump and that he was a monster. He said his thing was watching people suffer. He says he's willing to take a lie detector test. I listen to your podcast every day, and I remember you're saying we just need one picture or video of Trump that would blow up his regime. Maybe this could be it. Thanks for all you do for keeping us sane, Kelly. I have said that. We don't need all the files. We need one file that implicates Donald Trump unquestionably. It'll cause for the Republicans to turn on him, hopefully, and get him out of there. And once Donald Trump is out, then the rest of the files will flow out because he's the guy that's holding them back. This thing with Sasha Riley, I heard the audio tape. And like he said, if you want to look it up, just go to Substack, look up "Don't Worry, Boys Are Hard to Find." I've heard the audio recordings of this. It is absolutely disgusting, absolutely terrifying, and I don't know. If they can verify this thing, Donald Trump is fucking done. So is Jim Jordan. So is Lindsey Graham and Andy Biggs. They're all goofy, creepy looking motherfuckers anyway. So we'll see. I'll wait to see it get traction. I've heard about it on Substack and some other social media. I'm interested to see when the big outlets in independent media or even the mainstream media pick this up and see where it goes. See what other kinds of information we can get. See if Sasha Riley, in fact, does take a lie detector test. That would be interesting. We need some media outlet or somebody with some money to buy into this story and then promote the fuck out of it. We on social media will do it. I'm just leery about doing anything unless I know there is some verification of it. Um, so this story, I don't know if it's true. What I've heard is pretty compelling, but I don't know if it's true. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. If any of you out there have more information or maybe some validation for this story, please send it to me, or better yet, come on the program and we'll talk about it. Um, but I probably won't do a TikTok about it until I know for sure what's going on with it. Um, I've seen creators, they hear something and go, oh, that's a big story, or that's a cool story, or that backs up what I've been saying, so I'm just going to put it on. And then later have to walk it back because they find out it's fake. I try not to do that. I try not to put anything out just because it seems salacious and sensational. We got to have the facts. We got to know for sure. If we're going to take down Donald Trump, we need to do it with absolute evidence. That's the only way we're going to take him down. You've seen what he's done when he's gone on trial and such, and the things he does to try to slip out of these problems. We can't let that happen this time. Maybe if we got some evidence of the other guys, Jordan, Biggs, or Lindsey Graham, maybe if we got some evidence of them that was compelling and complete, that would be a start. So I don't know about this story. We'll wait and see what happens with it. But I'm hoping, part of me hopes it's not true because it sounds horrific. And part of me hopes it is true because if we can verify that, it will take Donald Trump out of the fucking equation, and it will be about time. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast here in Savannah, Georgia. Hope you have a great day. And of course, we will talk to you again tomorrow.